Hi, I'm Judy from Judykins. Today we're going to make masks, but we're not going to make these masks. The masks we're making today are the type you use with ink and rubber stamps. Let me show you how. The first thing I'm going to show you is how to stamp the background papers. I'm actually going to stamp a smaller piece of paper just to give you an idea of how the pattern's going to work. You can extend this on any size sheet of paper from a small card all the way through your scrapbook page and even wrapping paper. I'm going to use my Eclipse tape from Judykins. The Eclipse tape is a paper tape with a lightweight adhesive on it, which when you apply it down to your piece of paper, it won't tear the original paper. Now, I'm going to pull off enough Eclipse tape to cover the piece that I'm going to be stamping, and I lay this as a straight edge on my card. The reason why I'm creating a mask for my paper is because I'm going to use two different patterns to create the background. I'm laying the mask down on the paper to protect the top half while I'm stamping the bottom half. I'm using a mini Boleo, which is a border stamp with two sides. I'll ink up my stamp, the larger stamp with the lightest color, apply the ink to my stamp, and press it straight down on the paper. No rocking. Reapply the ink and stamp it about an inch away from my original impression. One final piece, and that creates the first layer of color. Using my second color, which is this tan, I'm going to use the double striped image. Apply the ink to the stripes, stamp it just a little bit off from my original impression, stamp it a second time, and now I'm going to clean off my stamp because I'm changing colors. Now my stamp is nice and clean, and I can use this light color yellow. Ink the stamp, press down, reapply ink, move it off to the center just a little bit, press down, no rocking, and that is the bottom section of my paper. As you notice, there's a little bit of a white line here right above my mask. I'm going to cover that up later, or I can camouflage it with my next stamping. This stamp is a flower stamp, and it's a little bit more solid. I'm using a burnt sienna or a little bit of a darker red-brown. And if I stamp that flower right over the area, you can see it camouflages the white space. I'm going to stamp in a checkerboard pattern, and I stamp off the edges of the paper. And this is the start of my checkerboard pattern. And one more on the corner, and that completes the pattern. Now that I've finished with this, I'm going to start the second pattern by removing my Eclipse tape and covering up the bottom portion of my paper. To start the next pattern, I'm using this great little mum with the light color, same light blue, ink up the stamp, and because this is a flower, I'm going to continue with that checkerboard pattern off the edges of the paper. And another trick is if you stamp a second time, you end up with a lighter color of ink. This gives your pattern just a little bit more dimension. The next color is turquoise. And I have this great flower with the little points on here, checkerboard pattern, off the edges of the card. Sometimes it's okay to twist the flower just a little bit to give it a little diversity. That looks like that's pretty complete. The final color, which is the third color, is back to this burnt sienna. Now I like to use the burnt sienna because it matches the flowers on the bottom half of my paper here. I'm using the smallest dot on the spot stamp, and again, just stamp in a nice little checkerboard pattern off the edges of the card. It's okay if you overlap colors. It just makes your paper look wonderful. Now that I'm finished with my stamping and I take off the mask, you can see the wonderful pattern that's starting to develop for my background papers. I have a finished 8x8 sheet of paper here to show you what my full pattern starts to look like. I want you to notice that no matter how carefully I tried to mask the join between the two patterns, there's still a little bit of a jaggedy line. And a nice way to camouflage that is with a piece of ribbon. The next piece is going to be to create the journaling block. I have a white piece of paper here, and in order to create my mask, it's going to have torn edges. Sometimes when you're tearing the Eclipse tape, it's flimsy and it's a little sticky on the back, so it makes it difficult to tear. If I apply it to a piece of scratch paper to make my tear, it works a little bit easier. I've applied it to my scratch paper, and now I'm going to make my tear. As you can see, if I tear both the Eclipse tape and the paper, I get a nice torn edge. I have a finished piece here that's already been torn. All I need to do now is peel this off of my scratch paper and apply it directly to my title block. In order to find matching paper, sometimes that's difficult, so I'm taking the same color ink that I used in my pattern and applying it directly to the paper. The mask covers up the area in the center so that I can do my journaling. Now that I've applied the ink, all I need to do is peel off the mask. I've created a nice frame to do my journaling. My next piece is the title block. I have a lot of white paper here, and in order to color my paper, I just take the bottom that's going to be the mask, and with my ink pad, I'm going to apply the ink directly to the edge of the paper. And you can see you have a nice title block. I'm bringing in the page to show you that I've created these little washers out of the same paper that I used to make the mask. And the way that I did that was I punched a circle out of the same color paper that I used to mat my photos. If you're going to a crop, I have a great tip for you to take all these little pieces. I have a sheet of Eclipse tape that I've used, and as you can see, because the Eclipse tape has this delicately sticky adhesive, it holds them on without having them fall all over the place. Take the brad and the little washer, put it through the hole, and open this up. That creates the piece that holds the title block onto my scrapbook page. The next masking technique I'm going to show you is for a greeting card. I have this butterfly stamp here that I like to use, and my masking is going to make the card look like the butterfly is on the top. So if I stamp my Eclipse tape with the butterfly, what I like to do is peel off a little bit of the Eclipse tape and stick this to the cutting mat for me to stamp on. Now sometimes you need several different masks, you need 2 or 3, and a great tip is to layer the tape so you get 2 or 3 masks out of one cutting. Stamp it onto my Eclipse tape, and then I would cut it out. Stamp it in the center of the card a little bit at an angle. Get a nice even impression. Pull the top mask off and lay it right over the top of my butterfly. Stamp a second butterfly, and this time a little bit at an angle. And the third butterfly, a little bit different angle, and notice I'm stamping over the mask. When I peel off the mask, the first butterfly that I stamped looks like it's sitting on top of the other 2 butterflies. The next technique is mortise masking. I have my lava lamp here, and I'll stamp that on my Eclipse tape to create the first mask. I peel off enough tape, tear it, and to make it a little easier, I'm going to stamp it right on my little mat here and stamp my lava lamp. Now, with a penknife, I'm going to cut the frame here of my lava lamp. I'm cutting very carefully and a little bit larger than the opening of the frame. I use the tip of my knife to peel up the tape, and that creates the mortise or the inside of your mask. Apply that to the center lava lamp, and you can see how my Eclipse tape covers up the other 2 lamps that I had previously stamped. Now with my paisley stamp, I'm going to stamp in the center of the middle lava lamp. And I'm twisting my stamp at a little bit of an angle and pressing straight down. You can barely see that you have the paisleys in the center of your lamp. And with a darker color, I'm going to rotate this just a little bit, press straight down, and now you can see you have this wonderful pattern of paisleys in the center of my lamp. But to really make this impressive, let's pull off the mask, and you can see that you have the pattern of the paisleys directly in the center of the middle lamp, and you didn't get paisley stamped on either edge because you had the masking to cover it up. My final masking technique is a torn mask. I have my card here, and I take my Eclipse tape. Again, I'm going to peel off enough to cover the entire card, and this time I'm going to tear my Eclipse tape in half. And all these little ridges create mountains and hills. And the first layer, I'm going to lay the tape a little bit at an angle. The second layer, I lay down at a much more dramatic angle. My next step is to color in this area that I have masked. I'm using my color duster here from Judykins, which is this little brush that dusts the color on. With this golden colored brown, I tap my brush into my ink pad and just lightly brush the ink onto my paper. This creates a nice dusting of color. It's light and it's not too dark here. It's very subtle. Now I'm going to remove the tape to create the second layer. Lay this up here at the top, but this bottom tape will cover up this first section that I colored in. I have a finished card here to show you how each layer creates a mini landscape. The final step is to stamp the tree with the silhouette in a dark brown ink. Now let's take a look at all the different techniques that we use today. The first thing that I did was created my beautiful background paper by starting out with a white sheet of cardstock, and I stamped the top half and then the bottom half. Next, I have the butterfly mask here, where the butterfly looks like it's sitting on the top and then the other two are sitting behind it. I used the mortise masking to create the inside of the lava lamp. And finally, I have torn masking here to create the landscape behind my tree. I had so much fun showing you masking today. We'll see you next time.
For step-by-step instructions on how to create this week's project, download the design guide featuring special make-it-your-own bonus tips.